Hi there, and welcome to another episode where we're going to be looking at the pages from the Gospel of Matthew. First of all, last time you might remember, I was saying that this image I was using as a cover image happened to be the image that had an issue on as well, because I'd drawn the scroll rolled up in a kind of a portrait kind of a thing, and apparently that is not the way that scrolls are, so they have to be landscape. And so now you can see that this image in the background has been fixed so that he's writing on a scroll in landscape, but also you can see that instead of just generic words, the actual Hebrew words are there that he is writing in that passage, so that's been repaired. Now let's move on to the pages we're looking at today. So we just had the Magi arrive in town, and everybody's confused, etc. And this is where Herod's being told about it. It says, now Herod heard, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. So last time we showed the people of Jerusalem being confused. Here Herod sits on the throne, and yes, he is vexed. Now we're talking about the actual image. Now it's interesting. Herod, when he was around, used his palace that he built in Jerusalem, and then by the time that Jesus is crucified, that same palace is the one being used by Pilate as his residence. And so you might recognise the place from Mark's Gospel when they go to see Pilate. And it's the same place. So that's the outside there, and you've got the two towers in the background and everything like this. Inside, however, they're in a different room than when I've shown the inside when they're talking to Pilate. This is like the throne room and that. Now, first of all, in the background, you can see Roman style murals, columns, and the pattern on the walls is also the same as in the temple. In Mark's Gospel, it's shown in the temple when the priests are conspiring against Jesus, and they're kind of in their back rooms or whatever of the temple. That has this pattern on the wall. Now Herod, of course, built the temple, so that's why I wanted to use the same one again to show the connection between Herod's temple, Herod's palace, basically. And in the foreground, we've got Herod himself. He's wearing a purple robe. Luckily, we know that he did such a thing, not least because he was a king, and that was the thing that kings did at the time, but because Herod, his son, wears a purple robe, but then they put on Jesus and everything at the end of the Gospel. The design of his clothes then is he's got this rich purple cloak thing, himation you might call it, and then his shirt has these clavi. Now apparently clavi, the lines on your shirt, the wider they were, the indicated the wealth. That's what I read when I was researching it, which is a nice visual thing. Whether it's true or not, you might as well go with it. So he's got very, very wide clavi on his thing, and I've also done them in purple as well. I'm going in white though, so that apart from that, because I wanted him to look like a Roman sort of king. You can see that he has a golden wreath on his head. This sort of thing, you see it in. I mean, obviously the emperor had this sort of thing, and you might think, oh, why has he got it? But actually, it was in the burial. Let me bring them up and I'll show you. So, opening up my Pinterest board, there's a whole board here of, as it says, Roman age people, but most of them are from this thing. Now you can see she is wearing such a thing, and we'll look a bit closer, but as we go down you'll see others. He's wearing one, and so the only point being it's not reserved for the emperor. These portraits are on people's tomb, like their coffin, and they are from, let's see if it says, it's like Fayum. Oh no, it doesn't say it there. It says Al Fayum there, and that's they're from Egypt anyway. Let's bring up another one. But yeah, they're from their coffins basically, and so it's this Egyptian practice in the Roman era where they they do these portraits of the people who died on their coffin. So but the point being that the rich, it's generally, obviously it's not everyone, it's like rich people and stuff, and so these guys are like a sort of a royal family, or a bit like Herod. Now, so Herod also has the same thing, and his not crown, his throne. I wasn't sure how, what style of throne to give him. In the end, I used one from the Jura Europus murals, and let's see if I can bring them up for you all. And I used one of those. In fact, that one. So these are from a slightly later period, around 200 AD. The image is thought to be drawn. You can see the throne then of this guy, but he's a person who is ruling in Syria, not too far away. Well, no, sorry. This is actually supposed to be... Is this supposed to be Esther or something? I can't remember. Yeah, Mordecai and Esther. So it's supposed to be a picture of the king Xerxes or whatever, I suppose, sitting on a throne, but they obviously use their contemporary style on it, and that's the throne. The throne has eagles and stuff on it, so I thought, well, that will work well with the Roman aesthetic. And then he's got the Sphinx type creatures on the actual throne itself, and a red cover for his throne. Now, the floor here that it stands on, because obviously we don't have these archaeological items specifically like the throne, but the floor, the actual piece of floor, is an actual mural that Herod did have in one of his palaces. So here you can see the pattern, and so what I've done is used the sort of general pattern and put it around his throne, so that it's a Herodian decoration. Next to it you can see the face that I've used for Herod, which is a statue thought to be Herod. I realised later that they're not sure, but it is thought to be him. I actually drew him the same as the statue, and so he was sort of young, and then it's I think it was even coloured. Yeah, it was coloured with him young, and then I realised, oh wait a minute, this is like right at the end of his life. So I looked up how old he was when he died, and he was quite old. So, and then aged him, so he was old when this happened. Now, in the background, you see he's got a little administrator bloke. He's going to do some of the talking in a minute, and he's a Jewish-looking fellow, but in completely Roman attire, and that's supposed to. And he's writing and everything, like Matthew does. He's supposed to represent then the idea that of Roman, people who've been Romanized, who are okay with it and everything. So yeah, and he's shaved, doesn't have a beard or anything. So he's of Jewish descent, but he is Roman sort of a person. The other thing, more interesting, you might be like, waiting, why is this guy here? And yes, you're right, he's supposed to look like he's from Asterix. And that's because I couldn't resist using actual historical thing here, but really emphasising. Apparently, Herod had royal guards that were ghoulish. So same as Asterix the Ghoul, they were ghouls. And so if I take you out to the Pinterest board, to my Herod one, I'm using the Pinterest board because I want you to know that you can, oh yeah, I remember I put it on a different tab. You can go here and look at these pictures anytime. So in this picture, you can see this is from an Osprey book, and it says, can you read the bottom? Palace, Herodian Celtic guardsmen, and then these envoys. Okay, so this guy here, Celtic. So I researched it, and it turned out, yeah, ghoulish soldiers or whatever were drafted into the Roman, army, because Asterix happens, I think it says 40 BC. So this is straight after, and it's actually after they get conquered. So they take Gauls, and this one says Celtic. Celtic being a general term which includes Gauls. And when I researched it specifically, it turned out that he had this bodyguard of Gaulish men, and the reason that they were popular or whatever is because Celts were supposedly taller and stronger and everything than the kind of Italian people, so they used to like them as creme de la creme bodyguards and stuff. So I've made him look right with his outfit. He's wearing a Roman style outfit, a Roman style sword and everything, but then I've made sure that his face and even the way I've drawn his nose absolutely is going to remind everybody of Asterix, and they're going to then think, why is there an Asterix guy there? And that is why. So it's very interesting, I thought, and I, like I say, couldn't resist having him in there because that is the truth. In the foreground, you can see a Roman lady, light skin, just again to highlight the difference between, the kind of Caucasian Gaulish people and the Roman people who were much more Caucasian at the time, and the dark-skinned Middle Eastern people, because Herod himself is an Edomite. And so then you got the Roman in the foreground, again light skin, same guy from the last panel who was talking to the Magi, and in the background two more again Roman style women. Okay, cool. Then he says he called together all the chief priests and teachers of the law, and they come. Now, again, this is a nice and interesting bit. So you got him in the foreground, his little administrator bloke, and then this guy's like the chief priest, and these guys are the Pharisees, and you'll notice that the two in the middle are like older ones, but who is these younger ones? So this younger one then, who's like second fiddle to high priest here, is the same guy who's then going to come up later when Jesus is 33 or whatever, asking Jesus questions, and the same with this guy. Here we are, for example. Let's move that to the side. This guy is this guy. He's still wearing the same clothes because in comics you just use the same clothes to make sure people know it's the same guy. And this guy, they come up several times in the Gospels. They're here questioning Jesus. There's him again. And so that was fun because it also just shows the passage of time. I'll just notice that his skin's coloured white there. That's not right. Okay, so but these are guys the Pharisee again in the comic, and I think in real life, Pharisees plain dress, black and white, and whereas the Sadducees are extravagant, rich, ruling class, you know. So yeah, they've got lots of jewelry and stuff. Growing fat on the wealth of the temple and stuff, which is what Jesus is supposed to. So yeah, you can see he's got these massive rubies or whatever, and yeah, and they speak. Herod asks them about like when will the Messiah be born, and he then quotes in Bethlehem in Judah, blah blah blah. And Herod thinks about what he will do about it. Then we get onto this page. Okay, and then he invites them, the Magi, secretly. The okay. So basically, I've changed the room, so he's not meeting them in his throne room. He's in some sort of upper room, you know, in the palace somewhere, to show that it is, you know, in private. I've done it so that it's at night, again, to increase the kind of intimate and feel, and also darkness and stuff, because I wanted the feel of this scene to be dark, and it's got lots of red. Red in colour theory, you know, of course, is danger, and so yeah, tension and stuff like that. So these guys are being shown into the this room, very you know, richly appointed room with murals. That what I was reading was this red colour, because I wanted to use red anyway, but this red colour apparently is like, it was for walls and stuff, was really again rare and new and sort of expensive. So the palace, you know, was going to have this very, very red colours on the walls and stuff. The design is again taken from Roman designs, but without having any people or animals and stuff on it, because the Jewish people at the time were much more sensitive to the second commandment, I think it is, where it's like not, you know, they didn't want to risk breaking the second commandment by having pictures of animals and stuff, which wasn't the case from the research originally when they first had the commandment, but at this sort of period they were, you know, worried about it. So that's why you'll notice in Herod's places it's all flowers and, you know, leaves and stuff rather than animals and stuff. In the foreground and in this guy's hand, you'll see these lamps. Now this is very specifically Herodian. The shape of the lip here that kind of goes in and out like that. Again, I can show you on this page. I think it's on this one. Well, there's one there, but you can see the shape. I have it on a different board, all the lamps and stuff. The square one's actually, you know, unique. Okay, but anyway, I'm sure you believe me. Yes, so it's very Herodian age style of lamps. So there's three. This one I originally had it lit, but then I realised it was playing with it would play the light too much, and it made the light too complicated, but also I didn't really want to light up this area. But you'll see in the next panel they've lit it, because then it provides the dramatic lighting needed for that panel, which we'll come to in a second. The Magi then come in. This guy's got his staff, because every wizard needs a staff, right? And you can see a few more of the Magi. So before we could only really see these two and the guards, this guard and this guard. Now we can see more of the Magi. So again, to stress, it's not just three. You know, it's more potentially. It could have been less, but you know, we just want to make sure that we're showing everybody that it's not necessarily that there was one. Definitely two, I suppose, because Magi is plural. So the last thing to mention is this guy again. You can see that how tall he is. So I've made him so he's like a head taller pretty much than the rest of them. This is the guard for these guys, and you can see the height differential there. His head's basically skimming the top of the door, so he's sort of like 6'4" or something like that. Yeah, administrator guy again showing them in, and Herod greeting them. Okay, let's go down. In the background, you can see a Roman style window, and the stars outside, because I've done it at night because they do immediately leave and go to Bethlehem, because he says, oh yeah, Bethlehem's where you should go and you should report back. And then they use the stars, right, to try and find Jesus. And then so here they're talking about it, and he says find out the exact time. So they're having a little conversation, and he says send them to Bethlehem, and said, so I've broken the narration out into the speech here. Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I may too go and worship him. So I wanted to, again, show him for Herod's face that he is... well, the lighting gives you that dramatic feel that something dodgy is going on, but he's saying, report to me, and he's got his eyebrows furrowed, because he's like, do it. As if he's in charge of them, because obviously he is a king, but he's not in charge of them. So he's like, do as I say, because he's a king. But then in the next one, he's like, yeah, because I want to worship him. That's why. And so I give him a look of vague and unconvincing. Cool. Then they set off. After they had heard the king, they set off on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them. So again, I've got them basically setting off straight away, so that I set the Herod meeting at night as well. The background here, I used Google Street View to find, oh yeah, I got the thing here as well, to find a real place that's somewhere in between Jerusalem and Bethlehem, because that's where they're going. It's just part of the road, and what you can see from the road as you go down. So, and then I've converted that into this, obviously taking out all the buildings and stuff, or pretty much all the buildings. And yeah, so it's a real place. They are riding their horses. You'll notice that the Magi are riding white horses. The guards are riding not white horses. The camels have the stuff on, and they're making their way over to Bethlehem. Then this last panel, it says, until it stood over the place where the child was and saw the star, they were overjoyed. Now, the way I've presented it is the way that it reads, which is that they leave and they go to Bethlehem. That's your assumption. It's possible that that's not the case, but what I've done is shown it in a way that kind of implies that that is the case, but could not be. And the other theory is that they don't go... Okay, here's the theory. The problem with the standard theory is that of them going to Bethlehem and then disappearing, is that Bethlehem's only a couple of hours travel from Jerusalem. So when Herod says you should go there and report back, within 10 hours or something, or a day, he'd be like, they ain't come back. So the theory is that to harmonise the verse in Luke where it says about them staying in Bethlehem, then on the 8th day going to the temple, meeting Anna, meeting Simeon, and then Luke concludes by saying, and then they went to Nazareth. The theory is that they did go to Nazareth very soon after, on like their... Oh no, sorry, it wasn't 8 days, it was 40 days, wasn't it? Because it's Mary's uncleanness time. But 40 days later, they'd gone to Nazareth, and then when the Magi get to Bethlehem, they're not there, but they get like redirected and follow the star, etc., and eventually find them in Nazareth. So that's the sort of other theory, other than the standard, which is that they just go to Bethlehem and find them there. Both kind of work, because the one I just explained, where it uses Luke's statement of they went to Nazareth. I think it much more directly uses that verse and everything, and it doesn't say where the Magi found Jesus, right? So that's the theory, that they followed the star and then they found him, but it doesn't say they found him in Bethlehem. They just went to Bethlehem, then they followed the star, then they found him. The standard view, though, is of course that he was born in born in Bethlehem, and even though it's much later, the Magi go to Bethlehem, find him there, and then they go home by a different route, and Herod finds out too late that they've gone. He would find out a lot sooner if they went to Bethlehem, but if they were following the people's directions, etc., and they went to Nazareth, they would be out of Herod's way when they disappeared, and he might not realise. But if you were going to accept the view that they went to Bethlehem and found Jesus in Bethlehem at this time, which is like 6 to 9 months later or whatever, that's fine too, because Bethlehem is the home of like Joseph's family, and then Nazareth, Mary's family. The Luke thing could be much more general, because it could be just saying Jesus was like went to the temple and they met Anna and Simeon, and they went to Nazareth. Luke skips out the Egypt part, but he doesn't say they didn't go to Egypt. They went to Nazareth and nowhere else. He just says that they went to Nazareth, and Jesus did grow up in Nazareth, so it could just be much more of a general, this is all the stuff that happens of significance in the temple, and he grew up in Nazareth. Essentially could be what Luke's trying to convey. He's not trying to say blow by blow what did and didn't happen. He's just telling you Nazareth's where he grew up, by the way, not Bethlehem. So, I hope I've kind of described those things to you in a meaningful way. This is the verse in question, Luke 2 and 51. So this is all the temple stuff, talking to Anna and Simeon and everything. Sorry, I might have given you the wrong verse. That's the bit where it says Jesus grew up in Nazareth. It's fine. Okay, this is the right one. Sorry, 39. So this is Anna, she was 84, etc., blah, blah, blah. Looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. When Joseph and Mary had done everything that was required by the law, they returned to the Galilee, to their own town, Nazareth. So that's the verse that we're talking about. Cool. I'm looking at the time. I'm wondering if we should do any more. Let's do maybe a panel or two on this one. So here we are. I didn't show the town. I was originally, when I thumbnailed this, I had a little picture of Bethlehem up here to stress the idea that they're in Bethlehem. But then, having heard all these theories, I realised we don't know. But what they do know is that they're inside and they're in a house. So it says coming to the house, and then it says, and I've used the narration, a speech. I've got Joseph saying the child with his mother Mary, so sort of introducing them, and they're all being introduced. It's a humble abode. Oh yes, this picture I drew in this way to reflect that image that I showed you last time, where the Magi are coming before Mary and the baby's on her lap, and she's in a chair like this. And funnily enough, in all the images, she is. Here we are, is the email that I was talking about. So we've got the earliest one, and then this one. So you see she's in this chair with a round back and everything, and the young Magi there. And this one, you see the chair specifically, it's like a wicker chair. Again, same shape. And the young Magi again. And again, same wicker chair, baby on the lap. And in all of these, unlike, we've got this thing now, right, I'm sure you're all aware, that in nativities and stuff, they show the Magi coming to the baby when he's just been born, like the day of his birth. And we know from the Bible that's not the case, and that he was, 6 months to maybe a year and 6 months, something like that. And most likely like 9 months, something like that. So I've drawn him as a 9-month-old baby, but here as well, you can see in these very old images, he's sitting up, that was, funnily enough, without even looking at those carvings, I thought, how can I show that Jesus is sort of like, what can a baby do when they're between 6 months and 18 months that that shows roughly how old they are. And so setting up is one of those things. And so obviously a tiny baby can't sit up, so it's not a tiny baby. It's got some hair. He's also teething and having his first sort of food and that, so that's again an indication of his age. But the idea being that I've shown this image a bit like those other images. It's kind of like, and then specifically this one where you've got the 3 young ones, and that's why I've got the 3 young ones basically step up with the things, because it's again supposed to just echo that these images. Maybe I should have done it the other way around. But they've got the stuff, and it also, I thought it was, makes sense because, they're doing they're not the old respectable ones. They're doing the donkey work of like, go and get the present and bring it here, and So the panel that we skipped over here is where they bow down and worship Jesus. They and Mary and Joseph are obviously surprised. As I said before, Mary actually's come out really well on these images, and she looks just the right sort of age, very kind of young. Hard to tell exactly how young, but it's good. The items, obviously real items. Here's an example. You've got the frankincense and myrrh there, and I've got him with a gold in a gold box. And then I'll probably finish this page off, it's fine. And then the Magi have a dream, and what I've done is tried to make that panel a little bit like when Joseph woke up from the dream a few pages earlier. So same sort of effect. Just to highlight that, and just to try and underline the idea that loads of people are having dreams, like it's happening. That all these dreams, everybody's having dreams, and that's how God's using doing things at this particular time. He's got, however, a nice skin with fur on to sleep under, and his blue cloak there next to him. Lastly, this panel, they go home, and now this is a nod to the theory that we just talked about where they're up in Nazareth, because this is Mount Tabor in the background. So it's to imply the option of the other interpretation, the Nazareth interpretation. But it's not explicit, because they could come this way if they wanted when they were going back. So even if they'd gone to Bethlehem and found him in Bethlehem, they still could have gone up the King's Road and crossed over around Jezreel Valley and gone across. So it's not exclusive, but it's a nod to the idea of that. So you've got the table there, and you've got them all, and again you can see the size of the caravan. So you've got the guard at the front, a couple of the Magi there, a few of the camels, and a person who's driving the camels, the young Magi here, and another guard. And the other thing is, on this creatively, I these are such small silhouettes and stuff. I thought, actually, do you know what? I reckon I could find a silhouette that somebody else has already drawn of a horse, because horses are notoriously hard to draw. So yeah, I found some free use ones, and then so I put them in, made them all the right sizes, slightly adjusted some of their legs, added little bits, put the people on the back, give them their feathers, etc., change the tails, So, but it just makes it much more readable as well, that because you've actually got a decent silhouette, not one that I've drawn, and so you can tell then that these are camels and these are horses, etc. So so that was a nice easier way to draw that particular panel. There were always going to be a silhouette, but I thought I might as well just use a silhouette of an actual horse rather than try and draw it from my mind. Cool. Thanks for watching today. I hope you've got some benefit from this one and enjoyed listening to some of the different interpretations and inspirations for these ones. If you're a patron, thanks so much for being a patron. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.